Hold on a minute. Don't worry. It's gonna go live.
Okay.
Just preparing. Ready? Tiffany, you still there?
I'm here.
All right. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is your girl, Tawana B, coming live from Not Your Normal Conversation. And I'm here with Tiffany Kirk. Tiffany, how are you today?
I am excellent, probably more excellent than most days with the state of the US today. I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
I am doing well, and I'm glad to have you on the show.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation and connecting with me.
Absolutely. So, Tiffany, we're just going to get right into it right now because, hold on, let me just show you. Tiffany, we're going live now. Sorry, it didn't go all the way through. It's fine.
Okay.
So let's do it again. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. It's your girl, Tawana B from Not Your Normal Conversation. And I'm here with Tiffany Kirk. Tiffany, how are you today?
I am doing phenomenal today. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm blessed and I'm glad to have you on the show finally.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really, really excited about the work you're doing and to have this conversation today.
Oh, I'm excited about you being on the show because I don't know how many people are listening or watching right now, but I found Tiffany on OWN's Ready to Love. If anybody's watched that show before, um, I fell in love with her quickly because of how strong she was. So I watched the show all the way through, and I think I went back and watched it maybe a couple of months after they put it on replay so that I could see it all over again. But I just have to say, I followed you on Instagram because I was like, wow, she's just powerful. And I saw you on the show. I knew nothing about you. And then all of a sudden, something popped up on your Instagram that made me instantly say, I have to get in touch with her. And to be honest with you, when I sent you the message over Instagram, I said, she's not gonna respond. She's too busy. She probably thinks I'm a fan from the show, which I am, but she's too busy doing other things to respond to this. So I'm grateful that you decided to respond to me in this way. And I appreciate you again for being on the show because you have a lot to offer a lot of people.
Well, thank you so much. And, I don't connect with everybody, but I do connect with people who are aligned with, my purpose and mission and where I see there's possibilities for synergy and just to, continue to do this work inside of the work that you're already involved in. So I was just very intrigued by what you were doing with this podcast and just your backstory after I learned a little bit about you. So I'm honored. And I'm glad that, you did seek me out and that we're having this conversation now.
I appreciate you. So let's get right into it because I don't want to waste any more time. I need the listeners to understand exactly who you are. And, this beauty is not just not from Ready to Love. She is more than that. So that's what I want to get into today. So Tiffany, before you became a VP at the bank, you were an elementary school teacher. What made you transition, and what was the transition like for you?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So a little backstory on kind of how I got into education. When I was an undergrad at the University of St. Thomas, which is in St. Paul, Minnesota, um, one of the requirements for a scholarship that I had, the Alan Page former Minnesota Vikings scholarship, was I had to work with youth for 50 hours during the school year to maintain this scholarship.
Wow.
And so through that work, it started as just mentoring at an elementary school, one of our inner city St. Paul public schools where I'm from. And then that turned into a part-time job during my entire undergrad while I was earning my business degree. And I kind of got to the end of getting this business degree and tried an internship in a marketing department at a phone company and found it was one of the most unfulfilling experiences that I'd ever had.
Wow.
Highest paying job, but unfulfilling. I was in a cubicle. I wasn't engaging with anyone. I was running numbers on the competition's packages, their phone products, and it just was unfulfilling. And, at that same time, there was an offer for me to get involved in a teaching program. There was a shortage of minority teachers in my school district. And so at my same college, literally the month after I got my business degree, I enrolled in a teaching licensure program called the Q program, which is Collaborative Urban Educators Program. Where if you could commit for an entire year, you'd get a $15,000 stipend, which at the time, coming out of being on Section 8 and welfare and all of, every other type of assistance as a college student, that was good money. So I did that for a year and got my teaching license, went into teaching for my first 4 years of my career and loved it. But then budget cuts came. This happens in every school district. And when you're a lower ranking seniority in your building, you kind of get what's left. And it was a pull-out teacher position where you pull out small groups of kids and work with them one-on-one. And that just wasn't really anything I was interested in.
Right.
And so I thought, how can I merge this business degree I've never used and went and spent 5 years of my life getting, and this teaching license. And so I took 6 months, the 3 months of the summer and 3 months of unemployment, and found what I was looking for. There was a position at a credit union for an education specialist they were really looking for a teacher. And a lot of teachers are always looking for this transition. How do you get out of business and get out of teaching and go into kind of business? And so I was placed in a marketing department. So my concentration was marketing. So I got to create a program and take it out into the community about financial education. And I also got to market it. So here's the best of both worlds. I don't have my own classroom, but I get to teach young people, older people. And that's when I started doing more education with adult demographics. And how I got into the prison system is teaching financial education. I mean, that's really where it started, is a women's prison, in Minnesota for an 18-month contract. And that became a love for me. So that's kind of how my transition happened.
Right.
Is just from education into a credit union, more education, but now specific to financial education.
Well, let me ask you. Now, you said something about your transition, and I read an article on you where it says that you spend your free time teaching financial literacy in the community. Why did you see a need to offer your services in the community? And where was the first place you offered your services?
So that's a great question. It's a need. This is the one thing that kind of separates the people who end up being able to thrive and those that are just surviving. Right. I think the lack of access to the education and the knowledge of how to access the products and services that are right for an individual, it's a dire need. And so the first class that I actually did was at a place called the Recovery Resource Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And this was a nonprofit for people with, substance and alcohol abuse issues that were low income. And it became a standing Wednesday class. And I would just go in there, and it was kind of my test group. I made these PowerPoint presentations and had handouts created, and that was my test group, and they loved it. And, it just became kind of, that standing class that I just look forward to every week. We opened accounts for them. And really, I got to see the momentum pick up, and I got to see people's lives change because of that financial education and the gratitude.
Right.
just kept me coming back. And then it expanded. I ended up creating about 250 partnerships throughout the Twin Cities metro area in about a 7-year period while I was at the credit union. And that credit union later merged with another larger credit union, which I also implemented that curriculum there. And their in-house program for their youth members, I also created that program. And so that's kind of where it started. And so I stuck with that while I was in Minnesota before coming to Atlanta.
Right. So I have to ask you this: of all places, you ventured into teaching financial literacy behind the wall in jails and prisons. What made you want to go behind the wall to help those that people say are beyond helping? They say that they're beyond repair, that nothing you do will work for these people. So what was that experience like for you, and what made you so, because I again read an article on you and you seem so comfortable. They had some pictures of you teaching men who were behind the wall financial literacy, and I said she looks so in her element, like she's really comfortable being around people who society deems as dangerous or beyond repair. So tell me what that experience was like.
I've never looked at people who are incarcerated as something to fear. They're human beings like I'm a human being. We've all made mistakes. Some people have gotten caught for their mistakes. Some people's mistakes did cost them dearly. But there's something called redemption, and there's something called a second chance. And I think that if anybody knows historically what this country has done to Black and brown people in the incarceration system, they will understand. And until you do that history and learn that history, you may not view people that are incarcerated in the way that I do. I just have a soft spot in my heart for people that are penalized for the environment that they come from and penalized for poverty, because the majority of people that are incarcerated come from poverty, have high levels of trauma that they've experienced in their lives,
Right.
and really are victims. And I'm not saying that some people don't deserve to pay for their crimes once they're committed, but they also deserve to make change and to come out a better person.
I
And
agree.
so, yes, so that's my motivation. I've experienced, just in my family, my brother has several felonies, and I saw that the effects on our family and him were great, and still lasting. And he's older than me, and his crime happened when he was 18. His crimes, 18 to about 23, and to know that those crimes and consequences still follow him is heartbreaking. No matter how hard he tries, that mark is still there. And and what I have found is that when I went into the prisons, these are some of the most committed, dedicated, gracious individuals. And so their motivation has always motivated me to keep coming back and keep coming back. You give them a homework assignment, they're going to do it. You give them some research, they're going to do it, because they don't want to fail again. They never wanted to fail in the first place. And I think that's the other thing that some people don't understand. Nobody chooses and sets out to fail. And so I just know that if I have resources, if I have knowledge, why not share that knowledge? Why not share those resources with people who truly want to learn this blueprint and understand how to get into the part of society that they weren't able to get into prior to incarceration.
Absolutely. So so I've done a lot of research on you just because I'm fascinated at the work that you do and find that people usually shy away from things like this. So in the Pollination Project article, it stated that teaching financial literacy behind the wall was your church. So can you tell me, or can you tell the listeners what you meant when you said, this is my church?
I just feel that I connect with these individual souls when I impart my knowledge. And they do the same for me. I learn just as much from them as they do from me. And I just think it's like a spiritual exchange. And sometimes it takes a while to get to that level, to build the trust up, so they understand, oh, she's here for us. She's not here for any other reason. She's truly here for us. I share my testimonies, and it's just a feeling of both of us. I think it's enlightenment, that this woman comes from the bank. She doesn't have to be here, but she wants to be here. And I think those walls come down for them. They start to open up. They start to talk about their why, why did they get here? Why do they want to get out and succeed? And it's just, that's what drives me, to hear people that just can be genuine and authentic. And it just feels like church. It just, when you leave church after a good sermon, there's just a certain feeling that you have. And that's what I felt, myself and my colleague. We say that every time when we leave, like, that's church. And so I just think it's a soul connection. It's a spiritual connection that I have with the individuals. And there's no feeling like that.
Well,
So that's my church.
before I say anything else, I just want to thank you. I happen to be one of those who was on the inside and was searching for anything that was going to, I wouldn't say make me whole, but help me to figure out why I kept going back to the same thing over and over again, like a vicious cycle. And, more often than not, and just so you know this, the volunteers is what makes our day. To see the love that they have for us. They don't know us. They don't get
Yes.
to come into the jails. They come in because they have a love for us, people that they don't know. They don't know why we're there. They don't know what crimes we've committed. They know nothing, but the love that they have for coming in and volunteering and wanting us to do better is some of the best love that I've seen, even from my own family. When someone can come in and encourage you in that way, it makes a lot of difference. So I want to say thank you, not just for me, but for all the men and women who have seen you, and just for all the volunteers who do this on a consistent basis, even during these perilous times. Like, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I still see you doing
Right.
things, volunteering
Right.
in the community, making a change, and doing some things that I smile every time I see something about one of your programs, and I say, yes, please keep going, because we need more people like you out there. So with that being said, let me just I'm sorry. I just wanted to say thank you.
And thank you, Tawana. I do appreciate it. And I will say this, I don't know anybody's charges when I go into the prisons and when I work with individuals, unless they volunteer that information, because it doesn't matter to me what
Right.
your charges were. You've paid your dues and we're moving forward. So volunteers are typically those people that are coming in with no knowledge of what you've done. It's based on who you are right now and how we can work together.
Amen to that. How would you say your life has been impacted since you started Lifers? How has that impacted? Because I know that was pretty much your baby, the first organization
Yeah.
you started. So talk to me a little bit about Lifers and what that organization is.
So Lifers, which is kind of, some people, I've gotten a little, slack for the name, because it kind of insinuates lifer as a lifer sentence, but it's really about being a lifer on the outside, and it's life restarted. And I started this for juvenile offenders. After thinking about a curriculum for 10 years, as a teacher, I know how to write curriculum. I know how to put a good lesson plan together. What is the objective of the lesson? How do you test for knowledge? How do you test that they gain knowledge? So that has been something I've always been good at. But to pull it together was again, 10 years in the making of me just keeping notes every time I'd get a good idea, sending articles to my folder on my computer or email address, until I finally, at the winter of 2017 leading into 2018, I hibernated and I said, you're going to get this done. You're going to get your 501c3 status this winter, and you're going to finish this curriculum, and you're going to start to seek a partnership with either a prison, young, juvenile detention center, or, a group out in the community to prevent this cycle of recidivism for juvenile offenders. And I did end up, through a partnership with the Atlanta Police Department, securing my first partnership with Fulton County Juvenile Courts for the summer of 2018. So we did 6 Saturdays in a row, and Lifers has 6 different components or modules to it. So the first was lifestyle. That's what the L stands for. And it's, what is your lifestyle? What's your lifestyle vision? We attempted to do vision boards, but the other material and content kind of got in the way. So we got to start on that. But they needed to envision. I asked one of the individuals, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And he had no idea, so that was a big part of it. You got to figure out what your lifestyle goals are. What in your lifestyle is permanent? What is flexible and can change. Our race is permanent, but our neighborhood is not. So it's just all these things helping them understand that. So we talked about incarceration. That's what I is, incarceration rate statistics, especially for Black males, because the majority of the participants were Black males. We did financial education. That's the F. E is education, employment, entrepreneurship. So introducing them to those three pathways. R is relationships, and S is success. And so they all walked away with a kind of a customized success plan based on their goals. They did a presentation at the end, but there wasn't a next step other than the police officers who brought their direct reports, because they were really mentoring these young men and women. That mentorship continued in that way, but there wasn't a what's next from my end. And I did it again summer in 2019, and I realized there's got to be more of a carrot at the end of this that will allow individuals to take something to another level. And that's kind of when the idea for Project Restart started, is like, we could do so much more. I've been coming in contact with all of these other reentry providers in the prison, outside of the prison, at, my brother's keeper task force meetings, or maybe another board meeting or a public event. I've met other offenders along the way who now have nonprofits. And I just have always thought there's a way at some point for us to kind of all come together. And so January of this year is when I proposed to 6 other providers, Project Restart, which was just, let me take some of my lifers curriculum and partner and marry it with some of the other curriculum that these providers have. And let's have a holistic approach, because what I can do is great, but what we could do together could be greater. And they were all on board. And they say, yes, we've been wanting to do this. Yes, if you're willing to pull it together, we're on board. And we just started plugging in weeks 1 through week 10 of what it would look like. And we just collectively went for it. And COVID happened, midway through us planning for what this was going to be in person. And we had to flex, and we said, we're not going to stop. We're going to continue to go on with the show. And so we started in August of this year, August 25th. And we ended just recently on October 27th with 13 participants that ended strong. They did pitches for capital at the end. And, on Thursday this week, because of the storm, the hurricane that came through, we couldn't do the in-person graduation. So now we're going to just do a reception in person. We did a virtual graduation, but we'll do a reception with the large checks and photos and remarks. But it's amazing. I'm shocked that it was able to, we pulled it off the way we did. But now there's nothing but going up from here and trying to replicate this at some point in other cities, and pulling the right partners together. That's really what I'm about. That's my strength. Starting with the end in mind. What are we trying to accomplish here, and how do we get there? So that's where we're at today, is Project Restart.
So you volunteering and staying active in your community seems to be very important to you. And it appears that you have targeted a certain group of individuals. Now, is this just for either behind the wall, or do you take your curriculum to community centers and other places where maybe they haven't been incarcerated, but they may need help with financial literacy? Because as I stated to you prior to our interview, a lot of people that I've encountered just in life don't know how to count a dollar.
Yes.
So, and it's even worse for the people behind the wall, because if you've been in more than one time, 9 times out of 10, you're struggling and you're behind the 8 ball anyway.
Yes. So the answer is yes, absolutely. So, my full-time job is Vice President of Community Development for Regions Bank. And I cover all of our Georgia and South Carolina markets. And my role is basically to work with the most marginalized, underserved, and lowest income populations throughout Georgia and South Carolina. And one of the big focus areas is financial education. So Regions Bank has its own financial education curriculum that now individuals throughout our 15 state footprint, which is really all the way from Illinois to North Carolina, down to Florida, over to Texas. Those 15 states is where we exist. So it's always free for any community group to request someone to come out and now virtually, do a webinar. Topics range, we've got about 18 topics now. So the topics range from, managing your money, your road to home ownership, types of credit, your credit report. We've got a reality check activity where your students get a scenario with their income and occupation, and we tell them, you know, what percentage needs to go to housing, go to transportation, and then they make their choices. So it's a wide range of topics. And, you know, for anyone that's listening, I would be happy to share my email address with you. You could put it out there. In any of those 15 states, I'd be happy to connect you with the team that does it in those states. But it is free. And most banks and credit unions offer this. It's not always widely, you know, advertised, but Wells Fargo has their own financial literacy program. Delta Community Credit Union here has its own financial education program. A lot of it is virtual and a lot of it is online now, where you can actually take tap into the webinars online or go through pre-recorded webinars. But a lot of information out there that's available for almost anybody.
So after beginning your organization, you found other areas that needed to be changed within the community. So you went in to start Project Restart. So tell me more about that program and how it all came together for you.
Yeah, so I touched on it shortly ago, but it really came together again through just seeing like-minded people in the Atlanta community that were doing great work in silos, you know, like just not as collaborative, and like I said, great work. But again, the thought process was we can do great together, and why not get some money? Why not get some money to really do even better? And that was the other difference between what I had done with my Lifers program compared to Project Restart, is it was just me and there was nothing at the end for these participants. So why not bring even richer resources, make it more robust, and then have an opportunity for participants to pitch for capital. And so in my role at Regions Bank, and this is not a conflict of interest because it was cleared through the bank, my role is to oversee grant distribution for nonprofits. And so one of the partners, Georgia Micro Enterprise Network, applied for a $10,000 grant. I'd also had a partner that was interested in investing in the Lifers program, but again, it just wasn't robust enough. There was really not as much in the outcome space. And so he pledged to put up an additional $10,000 and match that. And so now we've got a pool of $20,000 that, again, we will help participants at the end to take that just kind of a micro grant and apply it towards their education goals. If it's training programs or any type of fees that they need to pay off to get back re-enrolled in school, we would help to cover that. If it was employment costs, we would help to cover that. But the majority, matter of fact, 100% of the 13 participants put together a business plan for their own business. And as we know, entrepreneurship is one of the best pathways for people with criminal convictions because you don't have to get approved for anything by anybody. You are your own boss. It's also essential for this demographic because even if you do become employed, you need to supplement your income. I mean, we live in a gig economy, and the more income you have, the less chance there is that, you know, you will repeat this cycle of going back into the prison system. And so we feel strongly weurpreneurship is extremely important. And so again, 13 of those applicants did receive grants. We're giving the big checks out Thursday, and that most of them will receive their real checks, but the others were just waiting for them to get their LLCs in place and their checking accounts so they can start their day one business legitly and not commingling funds into their personal account, their business account. So we're covering all bases with this. But that is what Project Restart is about. We'll probably launch again in 2021 for a spring cohort and another, late summer, fall cohort in 2021. So we're looking forward to it.
So Project Restart, is that just for people who are on the inside coming out and then they continue this program, or is it how do people get involved with Project Restart?
So that's a great question. We're actually not on the inside. We are actually just external for people who have adults with who are formerly incarcerated. So 18 plus is the demographic, live somewhere in the Atlanta area. And that's the requirement. Most programs are not looking for people with criminal convictions, but we are. So we have not done anything on the inside. The financial education is as far as that has gone. But I would love to propose this to the Metro Reentry Facility where Prior to COVID, I was teaching, 4 weekly classes for a month at a time, skip a month and go back. So I would love to get with them and now say, why don't we start while they're still incarcerated so that when they get out day one, they've got this plan versus starting. So yeah, the people who participate, some have been out for a year, some have been out for 5 years, but they're finding those barriers a little difficult to overcome because of their criminal convictions and criminal past. And they just want to, get that additional support. And I would say one of the most valuable things that people are sharing with us that they're walking away from is a new network. We all bring so many additional network resources with us that are facilitators of this program, and we're allowing our participants to be able to access that expertise and those resources. And that's invaluable. So no matter what the check amount is that we give them, what's more priceless is that the resources and that we're willing to knock some doors down for them that they may not have been able to go through before.
I have been talking to you about bringing Project Restart to Massachusetts. I feel like it's much needed. I feel like the recidivism rate here is ridiculous. And I feel like there is something that we can do. And for us to be united, as you said, one alone, you can do something, but we need more. So right. I want people to understand that I'm fighting for this program to be, because I feel like there's a lot of men and women who could benefit and never see the inside of a prison again if they do right. this program and become successful at it. I think that there's no better time than the present. Even during the pandemic, I think it's time that we do something different. A lot of our Black and brown people are going in and out of jail. And again, sometimes we don't know how to value a dollar because right. we don't really know what to do with it. We don't know how to invest. We don't know how to open a bank account. We don't know. And as I said to you before, I've been on the inside and I've taken programs, and a lot of them, and they touch upon financial literacy, but they don't get in depth right. as to how we can go about making serious changes in our life, especially those of us with queries. If I have a query, 9 times out of 10, me finding a job where they're not going to run a background check and say, oh, we're not really interested in you. And not because I'm not qualified, but because there's something attached to me that's not right. going to go away anytime soon, even after doing time.
Right.
So I really would love to see this program here. And I would love to see it work for the men and women. And I can almost guarantee that the change will come as far as us going in and out of jail, because we'll have some type of stability in our lives that we never had before. And right. I watched your graduation and I cried the whole entire time. I couldn't stop crying. And I was like, oh my goodness, thank God no one can see me, because I was feeling a lot of these stories, because of it reminded me of myself, just not really having any direction or knowing where to go at all. So for you to do this program and be so sincere about it and have people trust you, because behind the wall, a lot of people, they have a hard time trusting people, especially people.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're beautiful. So I know the men probably flock to you because, oh, shoot, like we haven't seen a woman in a long time. But at the end of the day, when they get past that, as I have with you, you see something else. And you see a woman who is determined to make some major changes in how we're dealt with as convicted felons or people just getting out of prison. So right. What's your take on all the violence in the media against Black and brown people, namely Black and brown?
It's disheartening. I mean, that's one thing. I think I'm pretty good at knowing what the solutions are for particular problems, like what we're talking about now, like people need jobs. Let's train them on how to be more employable. People need entrepreneurship. Let's train them on that. But the violence in the communities is one thing I really don't have the answers to, and that's the one thing that really infuriates me, especially the Black on Black crimes. But again, I understand that it's environment, it's norms, and there's just unfortunately not effective leadership in some of the communities that need it most. I come from one of those communities. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota, which is across the river from where George Floyd was murdered, and when that happened, that is really probably what put the fire in my belly to really get Project Restart off the ground, because that happened in March. And, that's when the planning went into high gear for Project Restart, because it's like, if I can't solve for that piece, let me try to solve for something else.
Right.
But again, I think we need more leadership. I know of some great programs that are really based off of best practices, and I'm actually trying to get one of them there. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but it's been done in New York to increase the police and community relations, and to also decrease Black on Black violence. So I think we need to implement more programs like that. Those programs do cost money, and I think that every city's budget should have that built into it, is how to improve, race relations, Black on Black crimes, and provide more opportunity. I think the biggest thing, I just went to speak to a boys group last weekend.
I saw
the
that.
biggest thing, these kids are bored. These kids don't know their purpose. These kids don't know their gifts. So when you're left with no focus, you're left with no purpose, and nobody has helped you to uncover those things and to encourage you to bring those things to life, you're going to default to what everyone else around you is doing. And so I think that the solution is really solving for uncovering these kids' gifts. Let's get them to the table. Let's create a center of some sort. My son's father actually created a center in St. Paul called the Truce Center, TRUCE. That's right in the hardest hit neighborhoods in terms of Black on Black murders. And his goal is to, let's get guys that are beefing together in one room and do some mediation, and then some other programming, which he's putting that piece together, and I'm assisting with that piece for St. Paul, Minnesota. But I think we've got to figure out, we got to listen to the why. Why is this happening? What do we need to solve for? But I can almost guarantee you, if kids had more opportunities to use their gifts, more studios, let's get them coding for, virtual sets for, in Georgia, we got such opportunity. These kids could put their skills to, good use. But I just don't think there's any organization that's solving for that. And that's really getting out there to understand why they're doing what they're doing, and who are you, so we can plug you in somewhere where it makes sense.
So now, as I listen to you talk, names are just popping up in my head of people that I would like to put you in a position to know. One of them is Andrea James, and great leader, and has been through some things, but she's a great leader. I just went to one of her functions during the summertime, and I've never, like you, she's very active in the community, something that I would like to be more of, even during these times. There's got to be a way to stay safe and to protect our community, because I think that that's really important. So at no point in time have I ever thought, even, my uncle is a Boston police officer, and a lot of time, and I've asked him before, how many times have you pulled out your service weapon? And he's been a cop for over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
Wow.
So this lets me know a couple of things, that it doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to go down like that. And it's a choice that we make. And, honestly, I believe it's also a choice that we make. I'm formerly incarcerated. So what can I do to make a difference? What can I do to stand on something more than just my quarry? Because I am going to stand on it. I'm going to stand on it and use it as a doormat, because I'm going to wipe my feet on it. That's exactly what I'm going to do with it. It's time for us to do something different, but we have to stand together in order to get this thing done. And I think you are a pillar in a community of people who have no true understanding of what people are like on the inside. I mean, you've been inside. You've been amongst people like me, like men and women who really want to get their life together, but don't really know how. And so what would you say to those people who are skeptical, who are on the fence, and think that you should not be going into the prisons and helping people like my former self, because it's not going to change the way we think or what we do or how we live? How do you respond to people that feel that way, that feel like you should never be stepping foot inside of a prison to help us?
Yeah. And I've gotten that, and believe it, I'm sure you believe it when I tell you that I've gotten that question of why many times. Why do you do this? And I always say, why not? Why not? I love to work with people who love to help themselves. That is the best partnership for me. Like people say, when you show that you're willing to take a step, there will be someone that will be there, and God will be there to help you take that next step. I just love partnerships like that. And for those that are incarcerated, I have found that they are the most wired in that way, where when they're honestly saying, I want to change and this is what I want to do, and I give them homework of something to do to work towards that, or I give them advice of what to do, and the next time I come, I'll check in on this. They are the ones that are doing the work. I'll also say this: out of all of the 13 participants in Project Restart, not one of them does not have a plan to help other people. They all have that in common. And I think that this is a trait among most people that are formerly incarcerated, is their desire to make change for others behind them that have experienced what they have experienced is tremendous. They have a high degree of social responsibility as a part of them because of what they've experienced. And so I know that what I do will have a multiplier effect, which means that whatever I can do for one person, they're going to help 10, 20, 30, 40, hundreds of other people behind them. Their desire to start a business, for instance, of construction site cleanup, is not for them to become wealthy, but it's for them to provide jobs for other people that are coming out that they don't want them to have to fight like they fought to get this position. Absolutely. They want to create nonprofits. They want to create a bank for people that are coming out of prison because of the discrimination that they faced as a felon when trying to get paycheck protection money. So it's those reasons that I know what I do is going to be multiplied, because this is a population, and I'm sharing this with people so they understand this, that has a fierce desire to help others like them. Right. And so I think it's the best return on investment of my time that I could have. Right. I've gone to schools and I've worked with other groups, and it's, instead of them pulling from me, I'm pushing it to them. This population is pulling this information from me. They want this information. They want to apply what they're learning and really take those steps. So that's why I do what I do, is because it's a give and take situation, and they're going to be the ones to make the changes. They're going to be the trendsetters, the change agents for others behind them that have experienced this.
When I started this podcast, Not Your Normal Conversation, I knew that there was something that I wanted to do. I just didn't know per se how to get there, or not even what I was going to be talking about. Oh, because I knew that I was going to use my voice for something greater. I think it was just a matter of who was I going to reach? Like what society would say is productive members of society like yourself that would speak out about what they've been doing in the community to help people like my former self, because they think that we're not able to be saved. So for me, I just want to know from you, what can I do at this point to stand in agreement with you and say, hey, listen, this needs to be changed, and have my voice be heard in a way that they're not just saying, well, she just has a gripe against the system because she was once in it. I actually don't have a gripe against the system because I put myself in it. But I think me going back and forth, in and out, I think that had a lot to do with how the system is designed. It's not designed for us to win ever. And I'll say it every time. It's not designed for us to win. And I'm born to win. So there's no way they're going to stop me from doing that. But there's people like you who have taken a real interest in people like me to do something in the community. So what can I do on this end to help you get this here in Massachusetts? What can I do?
I think the first thing is to always know your city's statistics around, like you said, recidivism. Know your stats for your city, know the unemployment rates and who is most impacted by the unemployment. And then the other piece is just, continuing conversations with the individuals that are already in this space. Continue to understand what it is that they do, what their strengths are. Are they great at mentorship? Are they great at providing, felony-friendly employment positions? Are they great at training programs that would be open to people that are formerly incarcerated? I think aligning yourself with those individuals and staying in contact. And sometimes, a lot of times we're looking for others to solve for these problems, but it may just need to be you that's the person to get everyone to the table to say, listen, I do this well, you do this well, you do this well. What can we do collectively together? Even if it's an annual conference that you all are putting on as a webinar, where you're sharing information to a mass audience. It doesn't have to be as intense as a 10-week program like we did. It can simply be a 1 year, summit to start, just to get people into this funnel, into this space, and to see who's out there that's interested, and get maybe a subscriber list on a website together so you can start to build up, your audience and other people in this space. So I think that's the first thing, is that, know your city statistics and identify others that are in this space or interested in this space, so that if you do then put the program together, you now know that you've got the right key players in place. And then I would say the other thing is mentorship. If you're looking to do something that is personal to help an individual, take on just a couple of women that are coming out that you can mentor.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be, every single day. Commit to 2 hours a week through email, text messages and phone calls, of just saying, what do you need from me? And, creating that resource list is another good thing, creating the resources that are available for people being released around housing, around food, around transportation, having those resources handy so that you can share. I think that's another really big thing. And I'll tell you, the most important aspect of Project Restart, I'll have to say, has been the mentorship. Because you can do group lessons all you want. You can do webinars all you want. You can do financial education as a whole group all you want. But until you have those one-on-one conversations to identify individually what people need, it's very difficult to truly make change. And so there has to be that one-on-one component built in. And so for you personally, 1 or 2 women, that you could pick up as just as mentors, meant to be a mentor to, and knowing what those resources are that you can connect them to.
Tiffany, I appreciate you. I thank you for coming on the show. I thank you for speaking out. I thank you for standing behind us and in front of us, going before us to pave the way, and then standing behind us to make sure that we get to where we need to be. I think that that's really important. It's like you don't leave anybody hanging. I know a lot of programs, they start you off and then they're like, okay, I'll see you later. But Project Restart is not one of those programs to say, well, no. Because I think that you already are aware that if you kind of walk away, it probably will fall apart.
Right. So, that's exactly right. So that once they're in, they're a member. This is a member organization now, and we may not put you through the 10-week training again, but we're going to have ongoing education, ongoing touch points, because it makes no sense to have a program without the proper outcomes. And that's really what we aim for. We're not a check the box. We did this, check the box. This is truly about outcomes. And if we can't produce outcomes, we're wasting our time and we're wasting their time. Absolutely. So yes, this is a member organization for sure.
I couldn't agree with you more. I thank you for your time. I
thank you
on this show. And I am going to get some information from you, because I would like to share that with all of the people that are listening or going to listen. People are probably busy with their day, but people that are going to eventually listen to this, I would like for them to know where they can begin to start. This is like a healing process. And I don't think that people really understand that. This is a healing process for a lot of people, especially for minorities. And I think that's where the true healing and love and everything else begins. So I thank you, Tiffany, for being on the show. I thank you for acknowledging my many emails and texts and messages to do this show. I just really felt that it was important to hear your voice.
Well, thank you, Tawana. I really appreciate it. I commend you for your strength of fighting through, of knowing that there's a better way. And I look forward to continued conversations about bringing the program to Massachusetts, because I think that this is a scalable program that can be done anywhere. The right people exist. It's just a matter of really sitting at the same table and having, a common goal in mind. So I look forward to those conversations, and I'll just throw my email out there. That's the easiest one to reach me at right now, is projectrestartatl@gmail.com. projectrestartatl@gmail.com for people that have questions or, other want to, just bounce ideas off of me. I'm always available for that. I might take a little while in the next, during this holiday season to get back to you, because I got a couple projects of debriefing and, just some downtime, but I will respond to your emails.
Thank you. And everybody, Tiffany, Kirk, the you're ever out in ATL, check her out. Tiffany Kirk from Project Restart, everybody. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. I commend you for your strength of fighting through.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I commend you for your strength of fighting through.
Thank you. Tiffany?
Yes.
Okay, let me just stop. Thank you so much for being on this show. You don't know how much